And we are back with the three amigos, my three amigos. And it looks like today, Travis, I can't see you on the stream, but I'm pretty sure you didn't get the memo about the striped sweaters because Suzanne and Catherine are wearing striped sweaters. I am not, but that's okay. Thanks for joining us. Today, we're going to dive into advanced animations and we're going to kind of speed this one up a little bit. I think we got someone on our group said maybe our videos were going a little long in the tooth, as they say. Suzanne, maybe there's a different expression that they say in the UK, but we say long in the tooth.
I've never heard that one.
Long in the tooth. Well, I have a few years on you, Catherine, so maybe that's an old term. I bet Travis has heard that one. So anyways, we're going to dive into animations. We're going to look at the three different types of animations that we do in Singular. We have timeline animations, update animations, and behavioral animations. Then we're going to dive into the nuances of once you have an animation, setting velocity curves, doing this thing called linked timelines, which I think is a little bit definitely an advanced feature, kind of cool, and do some masking, which Suzanne's going to dive into. So I think let's just dive right in. So let's jump over to Catherine. She's going to set the table, hand it off to Suzanne, and we'll hopefully give some informative information today on our cool little stream on a Friday morning. Well, afternoon for Suzanne.
Yeah.
Take it over, Catherine. Let's see what you got.
Okay. So like Steven said, there's three basic animation types in Composer. Some of you guys watching might already know this. We'll cover the more advanced stuff a little later. But they are timeline animations, which is what the overlay sort of looks like when it moves in screen and off screen, or people say on air, off air. And then there's behavior animations, which is if you've got maybe like a flare or something happening when your overlay is already on screen. And then the last one is update animations, which is when you change the data of the overlay. So for example, if you change the text, what does that text look like when it's on air, when it's being changed? Does it translate? Does it fade, crossfade? So we're going to cover all of those three different types. And animating in Composer, it really allows you to make some really unique looking stuff. And I mean, I like it. I think you guys like it too.
I do. I think it's cool as heck. And I like what the one that you brought up. I think this is a very good example. I think it covers pretty much all the bases. So I'm excited to see us unfold the animations.
All right, so we've got this lower third here. You guys can see it in the tree. I'm just going to take it on air. I pulled this from one of our marketplace themes called Glaze, but I stripped it back a little bit to some basics. I also added a flare so that we can cover the animation types. So I'm going to dig into this subcomposition by clicking this arrow. And you can see that we've got one timeline turned on. And when I scrub through it, you can see some things happening here. So let me collapse these folders here, because really the only, there we go. What you want to see is that I've turned on timeline animations. We're in this animation tab. I got ahead of myself here, but when you go to the animation tab, that is timeline animation. So it's what it's looking like when it's moving on screen and off screen. I'm just going to take it off air so you guys can see, and then back on what's happening. So on this, I'll cover the flare in a second, but on the main portion of it, you can see that it's basically scaling right from the center out. And then we've got our text fading in on the end. So if I open up this folder, you can see that there's an animation on the text. So that's a fade in animation. And like I said, there's the scale here. So if I actually click on this, there's this button here that kind of pops up, slider button, if you will. If you click on that, you can see all of these different options. Right now we've got it on scale on the x-axis. And the reason it's coming out from the middle is because we've got all of our bounding boxes are center justified. So for all of these elements here. So that's why it's scaling out from the center.
Catherine, would you do me a quick favor? Just zoom in on that timeline with the slider up on the menu bar up on the upper right. There's the little guy right there. No, right above the animation, right next to time where it says two timelines. To the right of that.
Oh, yeah, right here. You want me to zoom in?
Yeah, go to the right and just slide that over.
Oh, I see. Okay. There we go. I forgot about that.
Yeah, you know, that one, sometimes I forget that it's even there. And it's a nice little handy one because if you get into complicated things, you can zoom in and then you can really see, we'll print out the duration of the animations on it. So it's kind of a nice little.
Yeah, it's very helpful. There's some other things here, snap to grid, show timeline animation progress during animation.
It's just the play ahead. It just flows it through. So if you turn that off and just play, it won't move.
You're seeing the duration happen right now. But that's some more stuff that you guys will, you know, figure out as you play around with this. But here's the fade of the text, like I said. So let me just dig back into the menu. Every menu looks the same for each timeline. But you can change it from fade, translate, rotate, scale, depending on what you want it to do. And then you've got the duration. So right now it's at 4 seconds. 0.4 seconds. If I do it to like 1 second, it's obviously going to increase the length there. And if I take it out and then put it back in, you'll see it takes a bit longer to fade in the text here. What else do we want to cover with timelines? There's 2 timelines. You can activate 2 timelines. So right now there's only 1 timeline. And what that means is my in move looks exactly like the out move. It's replicated. But if I wanted the out move, for example, to look different than the in move, I would turn on the 2 timelines. Now I've got out to in and in to out. So let me jump over to in to out. I already built this out, a different out animation, which translates everything down. So 2 timelines is really helpful if you want to get more advanced with your timeline animations and do a move that's different than the in move. So I think that's the basics of.
Do me one more thing, Katrin. Can you disable 2 timelines for me?
Disable. Okay.
Yep. And so now you're on the 1 timeline mode. So technically, what's happening if you hit in, play it in, you'll see the play head, the line go across the screen. You'll see it go across.
It back out, and then I can play.
So what happens in a 1 timeline situation? What it actually does is it's literally just the reverse of the in animation, meaning it's going to play in, and then the out is literally just playing the 1 timeline animation in reverse. You can see the playhead going the other direction. So it's just in, and then it goes the other direction. So it's kind of handy. We default to 1 timeline, meaning in, and then the reverse of the in, because it's most of the time that's generally what people are doing. But again, the 2 timelines, you can have a totally different animation on the out than the in, which is kind of cool.
You guys are also seeing here that there's nothing on some of these other elements, which was intentional. By default, when you add a new widget, like for example, a rectangle, you'll have a fade on there. We do that by default, but you can remove it if you want. If you want all of the animation to kind of mostly be handled at the group level, which is what we're doing now. So to remove it, you would just click this and then go up to none. So I'm just going to get rid of that rectangle. We don't need it. Okay, so that's timeline animations. I'm going to go back to 1 timeline. The next style of animation that I mentioned is called a behavior. I opened up this folder, this flare folder, because what you can see here is this flare is behaving. What it's doing is it's ping-ponging from left to right on screen after you've taken it on air to give it some life. So there's a tab called behavior. You can see that there's a behavior already added. It's position X, so it's moving. The effect is it's ping-ponging from left to right at a minimum value of -50% to a max of 50. So if I were to change this, let's do something crazy, like 200, you can see that it'll move way off over here, and we don't really want that. So let me put that back to 50. I have the duration set to something really, simple and slow. It's 8 seconds, but if you want it for some reason to be super fast, you can do that down to 1 second, do whatever you want. Stephen wanted to talk briefly about powers effects. Do you want to touch on this, Stephen?
Let's do that. Let's talk on 2 pieces on this puzzle. For one, when you're building a composition, I would always recommend that if you do need a behavioral animation, I would usually add that right at the very end. And you should be aware of the fact that if you're trying to move, say, a massive image across the screen left and right at a high rate or even a low rate, that's pretty intense for processing, for rendering that. So, you know, you use these, I would say, judiciously, I guess is the right word. Sparingly, I would say. I mean, Suzanne, I think you and I use them for things like this, like a flare animation, perfect application for it. And they're very powerful. You can have multiple, you can stack them up. Like right now, Catherine's just doing a position X. You could also add an opacity. There's a number of different options there. So they're pretty self-explanatory. But I said I usually add these right at the very end. I don't dive right into a behavioral animation until that's sort of the detail work on top. Now over to the
it's the cherry on top.
Yeah, exactly, cherry, exactly. So now on the powers, so we handle velocity curves. You can see, if you can just leave that dialog box open there for a second, I can talk about the velocity curve. So velocity curves, you can see here we're looking at the velocity curves in the behavior menu, but you're also going to see those if you're in the timeline animation. It's the same list of, I'm pretty sure it's the same list of velocities. So those are all predetermined velocity curves. So you cannot edit those curves. There's quite a few in there. So there's no, what I'll say for advanced animators out there, there's no explicit control over X, Y, and Z in your velocity curves. These are implicit, meaning you're going to be moving. Actually, I take that back with behaviors, because you can explicitly define X to move, Y to move, and I think X and Y in there. So, but on the timeline, you're going to be doing implicit control, which means you don't have independent control of X, Y, and Z in the timeline. So again, that's a real minute detail. Again, we don't expose the keyframes in here. There's a number of them to play with. Some of them actually have, I think you just selected on one that had additional options or properties. I think it's down in elastic. If you select elastic in the effects.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, you'll have different options or properties that you can adjust of the velocity. And we give a nice little update. You can see the curve. Yeah, so those are play to your heart's content. They're pretty cool, and I think that's pretty, that's kind of wacky.
Very energetic.
Yeah. So that's pretty much it. On again, I think the last one, Catherine, if you could touch on, let's jump over to updates, because that's the third piece of the animation options really that you have within Singular.
Right, so if I move over to update here, update tab, you can see that I have nothing activated for the flare for good reason. We're not changing the flare image during the show, but I do have it on the text. So during a show, if you're animating on another lower third with a different name, all that is going to do is kick out the first name of that first overlay and bring in the new name, and you can decide what that movement looks like. So if I were to just change this to text, you can see that it's moving from the down position up. So it's moving from the bottom of the screen up when the text changes. So on air, if you're switching from several different lower thirds, it's nice to not just have maybe like a crossfade or something very simple. Sometimes it's nice to have some additional movement. So you can see that it's active. It's been turned on, unlike the flare and every other element here. It's turned on. On the out move, we've got a quick fade of 5 seconds. And then on the in move, we've got a translate down. And I was talking to Suzanne about this before. This can be kind of tricky to understand. What down really means is it's moving from the bottom of the screen up. So let me just update this again. Moving from the bottom of the screen up. And if I were to change this to up, it would move from the top of the screen up. Down, sorry, top of the screen down. Now this can be right or left as well. So it adds some nice personality to your overlays when you're transitioning logic layers in your control app on air. There's this little button here called Always Execute. This isn't something that I use frequently, Suzanne. I don't know if you use it frequently. You can touch on it if you want.
So, I mean, if you're doing like a big table and one value changes, and you can use they'll always execute to make everything. So say for instance, you had a list of like 11 players in the position of one of these players' moves. Instead of just having that one line update, you can have all of those lines update. And it can sometimes look a lot nicer to have them always updating together rather than just having one line update. But it's a personal choice.
Yeah, so the always execute, even if the data is the same, if you send the same data to this text element in this example, it's going to animate, even though it's the same data. So the word text, if you send the word text once, then send it again, it will trigger the update animation. And like Suzanne said, that's nice if you have a list, a table where you want the entire list to do a nice animation as opposed to some of the elements not changing. I would just say the only thing I would like to add to this one is the offset. So if you can offset the animation. So if you had multiple lines of text, you can offset them. So this one is at 0.5, maybe the next one is at 0.6. So for example, in a table type situation, you might want to cascade the updates from the top of the screen to the bottom. So the first ones animate, and then the ones at the bottom animate based on an offset that you set here. And the last one, which is a big time saver, Catherine, go ahead and just copy that text for me.
Okay.
This is so what she's going to do here is just do a standard copy. She can either do that in the right-click copy or with the icons up at the top next to the add button. There's the copy and paste button. And if you go ahead and just paste that for me, now clearly if you paste text, it's just going to take an exact duplicate of text and put it in there. So go ahead now and delete the one you just, the duplicate. But what you've also done when you've copied, and we've covered this in other areas, but this is where it really helps. Just drop another piece of text into this scene, into this composition from the menu bar.
Oh, okay, sure.
Okay, so, and then if you notice, it does not have the update animations on it. Now to set all those update animations, it's quite a few clicks. So what you can do is go to the one where you've done your update animation, you've got it, you've already copied it, and now simply you're going to paste. Yep, go to this one and then hit the paste button. And now you've just saved yourself, I think it's something like 13 or 14 clicks, because when you copy a widget from the tree, you're not just copying the widget, you're copying all the properties that you've set for that widget. So it saves you a tremendous amount of time. Now that also holds true for the animation. So if you
I'm just pasting all these properties in here so you guys can see what's happening.
Exactly. And same with the animation. So everywhere you see the paste feature, you can paste.
There we go.
Exactly. There it is.
So it's the same exact element. If I were to hide this, it's the same thing. Yep. Yeah, this is incredibly helpful. It saves so much time, especially if you want to be consistent with all of the elements that you have.
The only other
piece
is down at the bottom of the screen. You can see there's the timeline. Excuse me, the attributes for your timeline animations are here. They're always printed on the screen. That dialog box is always there. So you can make your edits there or in the pop-up. For example, if you can just click on one of the, just try to edit that text's animation properties on
Sure.
the bar, green bar.
Maybe. Oh, on the green bar?
Yeah, just bring that dialog box up. So editing it here, leave it up there for a second so that that dialog box that's up on the screen right there, you can make your edits there, or you can make it down on the persistent dialog box that's at the bottom of the screen. Sort of dealer's choice. I use both. It's just another way to do the edits. I think that probably covers all of the basics, and then Suzanne will work her magic because
you got like 10 minutes, Suzanne. Can you do it?
Do it.
Yeah.
I do want to say really briefly before I let Suzanne have the reins. If this is really helpful for me, at least, if I've got like, let's just say a really, really tiny animation and I'm like, okay, I'm trying to get this button to appear. It's just do it here. You know what I mean? It's accessible, if you will. Okay, so let me move this back.
That's exactly one of the reasons why the guys put that down there at the bottom of the screen, so it's always accessible, even if you have a short timeline like that.
It's also great when you just like start to reference things. You just click on something, you don't have to like expose it, or you can just reference it. All right. I am going to start showing my screen, hopefully.
It's time now for Suzanne, the other super whiz kid with the cool striped sweater on this fall morning, afternoon.
All right, let's see. So, I'm just going to shrink this guy up a little bit. We're going to make a little corner promo slab. Now, that animation is really quick, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scrub through it. We have a logo, our logo, the Singular logo, zooming in and out. And then we have this element kind of swiping down and revealing our matchup, or whatever we want to call it at this stage. Now you can see that I'm using linked timelines. And to link a timeline, all you have to do is add a subcomposition, right click it, and then you can link it there. And what that basically does, it means is whenever I play this slab in, it will also play all of these subcompositions in. So if I go into this guy and press, take that out, and then if I press it in, you can see that that's playing in at the same time as it's playing in this guy over here. So they're all playing at the same time, whereas if I unlink this and then take it out, you can see that it's not playing at the same time with everything else. It's just there.
What link timelines does, and this is it can be kind of tricky. So basically, when you're building an overlay, people just build it in one subcomposition. But if you want to build nest subcompositions, which you'll probably run into the more advanced you get, you need to link that timeline back to its parent subcomposition. So basically what you're doing in this subcomposition that's green is you're saying, I'm inheriting the parent's animate, I'm linking it to the parent's animation. If you don't do it, like Suzanne said, it's not what you want, for lack of a better.
This is where it gets a bit murky. It won't animate in if you don't link it. It will just be a composition. So if I unlink this guy and let's just put in a little box, and let's make our box red. Let's make it a horrible, nice bright blue. And we're just going to shrink it down. We come back over. So when we play in this guy, you can see it's just there. It's fading in at the same time as this because it's on the parent of this group, but that is the only animation that you're seeing. So it just appears, that's it. Whereas if we link it and then let's do translate left, let's just drop this to like there. Now when I play it, you'll see that it comes in again. If I unlink it again and play it, you can see that it's no longer there. So that's a very quick way of showing you what a linked timeline is doing. So I'm just going to delete this guy because we don't need him. So we're just going to go into the build of what we're doing here. So we're first using a back ease to make our, should actually be here. So we have a background logo, a background which is connected to this. He doesn't have an animation on him because he's just going to appear when our intro is finished or when we want our intro to start. And then we're using a scale animation using a back ease. Just close this guy. With quite a big overshoot. So if I turn on my bounding box, you can see this. You can see how much we're growing before we're shrinking it back down to the right size. Obviously, we can change this. We can reduce the shoot so it doesn't, so it just stays about there.
But because you've got this really big overshoot, you have one really nice feature activated, and it's called Clip Children. And this is the masking stuff that we wanted to show you guys, which is without that activated, you're going to see the overshoot happen, right? So it's not she's got the clip children. If you could go back to that folder, it's on the parent folder. Yeah, it's on this parent folder logo intro. So because that bounding box is there, if you click clip children, it just hides everything outside of it. So that's really helpful. And we call that masking. But again, the feature is called clip children in the effects tab.
This is your best friend.
It's very handy. It's extremely handy for doing when you want to control or confine animations within a bounding box is effectively what you're doing. So many animations that we start, or many, for example, a simple lower third, you might start with a group and then immediately turn on, scale it to the size you want and put all of your widgets within that group and then turn on clip children. So everything stays within that area.
Also means that, you know, your anchor points and everything, when you're building that way, everything's set to 0, you know, or they're always going to be in exactly the same place. You don't have to worry because all the messy business is happening in the group above, or the main group. Same with this one, you know, all of these are set to 100 and 0 in my anchor point. So it means that when I start developing it, it makes it a lot easier and a lot faster. So that's the first part of the animation, and that's our mask that we're using by using this clipping children. You see there, just kind of recapping that. So the next part of the animation that we have is, I'm just going to move my fade to the very end, is we have this translating down, and as that translates down, I want it to reveal the section underneath. But I want this to translate at the right time, and I want to see it at the right time. So my fade, I'm just going to drag it. And I always find it easier to go here and just type 0.01. And that's the smallest you can do. And then what that's going to do is, as I trigger that, you can see that it's just covering that last bit. And that means when I turn on my main build, where it's got all my lovely information, it just looks like this is appearing underneath it and revealing. Okay, I managed to do the majority of that in under 10 minutes.
No, that's great. It's a very slick animation. And really what you're taking advantage of is nested, going back to what we meant to, nested subcompositions. I'll make one reference to After Effects because there may be a number of users that use After Effects. I'm sure there are that have started to explore Singular. Our nomenclature, whereas After Effects uses pre-compositions, our nomenclature is subcompositions. They effectively, in many ways, do the same things. So you're doing nested animations, and your link timeline, as Suzanne showed you earlier, you have the ability to either inherit those children, the nested children, or not. So very handy feature, but definitely advanced. You have to play around with it a little bit. Again, the majority of your most basic animations are usually just one subcomposition deep, but there's a number of widgets that are dependent on subcomposition. And there's another number of situations where you need effectively 2 types of animations on one group. So I think you covered that pretty darn well. It's a tricky one, but with a little playing around, I feel that our user base can prosper with this with these tools.
Yeah. So, and then this is called, we're loosely calling it a cover animation, but yeah, I wanted to throw that out there if you're looking for a term for that. So if you guys have questions and you're reaching out to us, just, you know, mention cover animation and we can help you out.
The only other piece I will just add in this is when Catherine was referring back to the update animations, if you're in sort of the broadcast space, a lot of time that's referred to as a hot change. What that means is there's already a graphic on the air, like a lower third, and maybe you want to change the lower third, the content of the lower third while it's on air. So we call that a hot change because it's hot, it's on air, and when we send new data, the update animation, if it's enabled, will reflect how you've defined the animation. So that's used for hot changes, on air hot changes for broadcast, maybe people who are more in the broadcast space. I think we covered it. I think you guys did a great job. I think it's hopefully this rounds out some of our other videos about the platform, about compositions, and gets into more detail. And I don't know what Catherine has teed up for us next time, but I'm sure it's good. So
nothing at the moment. We have to think of something. So
well, hopefully our users are millions of users out there will ask for something really cool, and we will attack it and help people get over the hurdles if they have any in the platform, so we can help people make some really amazing graphics with Singular. Is that it? Anyone else?
do we have any comments, Travis? Questions? Okay.
Well, you guys did a perfect job, so no one's confused, so no one's asking questions. Travis, Travis, thank you for being the man behind the scenes as usual. And my striped sweater friends, you guys are rock stars as always. Thanks for joining us. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.